With the Season 1 of the War Within starting soon, many players are still unsure on what to main on their way to the top. I mean, there are 13 different classes with at least 2 different specs for each that all play differently from each other. So it's very understandable if you feel overwhelmed when it comes to choosing your class for this expansion. Which is why in this series I will showcase every class and spec that is in the game to help people that might be unsure on what to play. In this video I will go over the Mage, probably one of the most well-known class in honestly any fantasy MMORPG. So in this video I'm gonna give you my top 5 reasons to play this insanely powerful ranged DPS. Number 5. Mobility. One of the core differences to other casted classes and specs is the mobility, which is also why combat is so much more fun on a Fire Mage, for example. Just spam your buttons while jumping around and casting your powerful pyroblasts. If you didn't know, Mage is probably one of the, if not the class with the highest mobility. You can blink twice, alter time to jump back, teleports, in portals, and so on. And as if that's not enough, you can even use some talents that reward you with more movement speed if you use spells like Scorch, which already allows you to move while casting. Regardless of what spec you play, you will always be the most mobile range DPS. Besides Hunter, of course, since you can blink while casting, alter time to jump back to a previous location, similar to the Demonic Circle spell of Warlocks. Even out of combat, you're the fastest class to get around the whole world, with the use of teleports and portals. You want to go to Darnassus for no reason at all? Use the teleport. You need to turn in a quest in Dornagal, but you're in God knows where? Use the Dornagal teleport. If you have friends that play different classes and you feel generous enough, you can even take them with you by opening portals to all these locations, so you all save time collectively. People say that nowadays there's no class identity left, but honestly, Mage is one of the few that kept that. I remember back when I first played WoW, I was very jealous of all these mages being able to port around the whole world, while I was forced to fly on these slow griffins that would take questionable routes just to make the flight 15 minutes longer. And guess what? It's still like that. Not as extreme obviously, but I'm still jealous of mages being able to be everywhere on the map, which is one of the reasons I started playing Mage myself. Number 4. Utility. Mage has a lot of utility, and by a lot, I mean a lot. Even though mages only wear cloth, they are still one of the tankiest classes in the game, thanks to their defensive capabilities. A personal shield, a mana barrier which shields the whole group, they can literally go invisible while reducing the damage taken, ice block making you completely immune to any damage whatsoever, which if you combine it with your cryo freeze talent will also heal you for 55% of your total health, ice cold which reduces your damage taken by 70%. All these things make mage so hard to kill, and therefore make them less reliant on healers and making them a perfect addition to raid and dungeon groups. Additionally, as if these spells are not enough, they are one of 4 classes that have Bloodlust. In the Mage's case it's called Time Warp, but it's exactly the same as Bloodlust. Time Warp increases the haste of every member of your raid by a whopping 30%, which is just insane, and one of the biggest reasons Mage will never be entirely bad. Number 3. Crowd control. Now crowd control is probably mainly for all you PvP enthusiasts out there, but the CC most certainly still helps a lot in raids and dungeons. You can slow enemies, freeze them, disorient them with things like Dragon's Breath, knock them up with arcane spells, and last but not least, polymorph them. The amount of CC a mage has in his base kit, regardless of the spec, is just incredible, and always useful one way or another. If you enjoyed this video until now, and you don't want to miss out on future top 5 reasons to play X class videos, consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps out a lot, and that way I know what you guys enjoy, and if you ever decide to stop consuming my content, there's no shame in removing that sub. I also have a community Discord, where you can chat with me and other members of this community, and maybe even find some new friends to play with. You can also share your thoughts on your main classes in there, and tell me why you might play a certain class. The link for that is down in the description below. Moving on to number 2 is the versatility. Even though the Mage class is combined of 3 DPS specs, there's still a lot of differences and variety in these specs. So many differences, in fact, that every single spec feels completely different. Frost Mage is probably the simplest of the 3, but still not brain dead button bashing easy. They have a simple rotation, which changes depending on single target or AoE, but nonetheless are known for their sustained damage, where you don't really have to worry about when to press your cooldowns, since the damage output will remain constant throughout the fight. They have insane CC too, and are especially good in freezing and slowing giant piles of mobs at once. Their AoE rotation is also insanely strong, combining Blizzard and Frozen Orb, making enemies lose health while not even being able to get to you. The Fire Mage has always been known for its offensive focus, high damage and cleave with the Ignite passive. If you ever fantasized about turning your enemies into a pile of ash, this is probably the spec to go. Unlike Frost Mage, Fire Mage depends extremely hard on its main cooldown, Combustion. Combustion increases your crit chance by 100%, which makes you literally go crazy.
Go crazy! Ah, go stupid! Ah!
And additionally, every time you crit twice in a row, you get an instant cast Pyroblast, which is your main source of Ignite buildup. So if you have Combustion up, every spell will crit, and therefore every second spell will be Pyroblast. Do you understand now why Fire Mage is so cooldown dependent now? The cooldown management of this spec makes it one of the hardest specs to learn and even to master, but if you get comfortable with this spec, there's nothing stopping you from reaching the top of the damage meters and looking sick while doing so. The Arcane Mage is very fun to play, once you get the hang of it, which will take a lot of time, since Arcane Mage is the hardest mage spec, if not the hardest spec in the game to learn and master. They stack several cooldowns to have periods of insanely crazy high damage, but once those expire and you're out of those periods, your damage will drop down drastically. Once you realize what you're doing and what buttons to press in order to do damage, this spec feels insanely satisfying and rewarding. This spec relies heavily on its Touch of the Magi window, which accumulates 20% of the damage you deal while this spell is on the enemy, exploding at the end of the timer for that amount of damage to the target and surrounding targets. So if you ever get bored of playing the consistent damaging Frost Mage, you can always switch to Fire or Arcane, and you will soon learn that these specs are a complete 180 from another, and it will make you learn a completely new playstyle you didn't play before. Moving on to my personal number one is the viability. Mage is busted, and always has been busted. And always will be busted. I mean, none of you can name one expansion or season where all three mage specs were considered bad or unplayable. There's always at least one mage spec that is very much desired in groups and raids for each expansion or season. From the beginning of World of Warcraft to the War Within now, Mage was always a class that was very good if not broken to a point where people say that the Mage class is the child of Blizzard, which is why they care so much about it and don't allow them to be bad for even a week. Jokes aside, Mage will always be wanted in groups and raids, no matter what content. The utility and CC alone are reason enough to bring at least one Mage with you. So if you ever wondered if you would even be able to play the game if you played Mage, yes. Yes, you will be playing the game, and it will be a lot of fun. And I would be willing to bet my WoW account for this statement. Especially now in the War Within, Mages seem to be extremely strong with the addition of hero talents and the damage that comes with it. Currently, the strongest spec is probably Arcane with the Sun Fury hero talents, so if you just want to be a meta slave and play what works best, I would recommend you starting with Arcane. But that might change any day, with a single patch nerfing the spec, but then again, you will have two other specs that will most likely be above average when it comes to their performance. Now that you're playing Mage, you will need to know how to gear up quickly before the season begins. Click on this video if you want to know how to get to 590 plus item level as quickly as possible, where I will go over the best route to take to be ready for your Mythic Plus and raiding journeys. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more top 5 reasons videos for other classes, like this video and subscribe to my channel. And while you're down there, let me know in the comments what class I should cover next in this series. I wish you all a great day and I will see you in the next video.